Kevin, we're going to talk a little bit later on about each category that is in CSA, but can you just share with us what CSA is?
Sure. I'd just first like to thank James and the guys here at SBL for allowing me to come up to speak today, and hopefully we can clear up some of the confusion about CSA. Basically, CSA has been around since 2010. Prior to 2010, the FMCSA, who has the responsibility, of course, of regulating the industry, making sure that companies and drivers are operating safely. Prior to CSA, they had previous systems that they used to aid them in their enforcement, but they were looking for a way that would allow them to maximize their time and minimize the time that they were spending at carriers' operation, but still achieve that goal of ensuring that companies were operating compliantly with the regulations. So they came up with CSA, and this involved years of study, but they came up with a system where they basically determined that the way a carrier, their approach to safety can be determined by the results of their roadside inspections. So CSA basically comes down to the roadside inspections that carriers endure out there on the roadway. What CSA is based on the results of roadside inspections. That information is uploaded up to Washington, and it's divided into 7 basics: behavioral analysis, safety, improvement categories. Those 7 basics, the results of those 7 basics are added under a carrier's DOT number, which allows FMCSA to track how that carrier is doing in each of those safety areas. So you have unsafe driving, hours of service, driver fitness, drugs and alcohol, vehicle maintenance, and insurance, and accidents. So they're looking at your compliance in each of those areas under CSA. Prior to CSA, when the FMCSA came in, they came basically and looked at your entire safety operation. Maybe 4 to 5 days they would stay in there. With CSA, it allows them to focus exactly on the areas where the company is having safety issues. That's where they want to focus. So it allows them to minimize the time that they're in the carrier and address those areas of concern.
So what this is boiling down to, what I'm hearing from you, Kevin, is this all boils down to one word, and that's safety.
It definitely boils down to safety. That's the FMCSA's mission. Just like the FAA is responsible for safety in the airways, Federal Rail is responsible for safety on the tracks. FMCSA's mission is to ensure that the industry is operating as safely as possible on the highway. So CSA is just a tool that they came up with in 2010 that allows them to do that more effectively and efficiently.
You and I were discussing before we sat down to do this, the data. I was amazed. I recently read the data, and it broke out into the top 20 most commonly issued violations. And they correlated that to if a driver got this particular violation, the percentage they were most likely to be involved in an accident or crash, which they got from hard data, hard facts. So there's definitely, the data is there. Understanding the data, I think, is the problem that most of the motor carriers are having. And what does this data say to me? And on the driver's side of it, I'm not quite sure that a lot of drivers really understand, what is this category? What are they looking at here? And how do I keep myself compliant?
I think data is the key word. As you said, this entire process, the entire CSA process is driven by the data. FMCSA actually has a research department that studied this for years, and they determined, as you stated, driver behaviors that can give them a clue of a driver's likelihood of being involved in an accident in the future and that kind of thing. So they based this whole CSA program on the data that is compiled from the roadside inspections. It's very important, as you said, for drivers to be engaged with CSA. If you have drivers out there and they're not aware of how how their behavior is affecting the company, then the company can find themselves in a position that they don't want to be in, basically. The drivers have to understand how their behavior is affecting the company, because it's all based on what